Good
Hello,
afternoon.
everyone. Hi, welcome to Alumni Talks webinar that will give you first-hand information on ESADE Business School MBA experience. My name is Mila, and I am the moderator of this webinar on behalf of Unimi. Please welcome our panelists, ESADE's Associate Director of Recruitment and Admissions, Jeroen, and one of
Nice
their
to,
successful current students, Laurie Alvarado, President of Student Association at ESADE. They will be telling us about the educational journey and how acquiring a degree from ESADE Business School can enhance your career. You will be able to send your questions throughout the entire webinar by typing them in the chat box, and our panelists will take the time to give you an answer during the Q&A session in the second half of this event. Okay, let's check the sound now. Could you please write in the chat box if you can hear me? Great, thank you. So we can start with the presentation of our wonderful panelists.
Thank you very much, Mila, for the kind invitation. And thank you, Laurie, for joining us today. And of course, thank you for our audience for listening in today, either for you in the evening, morning, or late afternoon, depending on where you are geographically located. My name is Jeroen Verhoeven. I am originally from the Netherlands. However, I am sort of a decaffeinated Dutchman because I moved to Spain about 17 years ago. And the last 15 years, I have been involved professionally with ESADE. Very happy, very proud to be part of ESADE. I am currently Associate Director of Admissions for the United States of America and the Benelux. At ESADE, we sort of divide our admissions geographically. So depending on where you are located now when you listen to us, we will most likely gladly put you in touch with one of our dear colleagues in the team if you have any follow-up questions afterwards. With us is Laurie, of course. Laurie, perhaps you would just like to say a quick hello and then briefly introduce yourself before we dive into the presentation, and then afterwards the main dish of our event would be the Q&A session.
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here and for having me. As Mila said, I am a current student at ESADE, and I am also the president of our student association, so the president of Mba. So that means I work between the students and then also the administration, so I have a very unique point of view. But as I said, I'm originally from California and now living in Spain and definitely enjoying that international student life, and I'm going to be happy to share with you my experience at ESADE. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Just from a logistical point of view, we will be going through a brief presentation. I will be trying to go at a relatively quick pace, so we have plenty of time left for the Q&A session afterwards, which I think is the main added value of today's event. But just to set the tone, let's talk a little bit about a couple of things that we believe at ESADE are vital. As you can see on the screen, we have the sort of the hashtag slogan, "Be a Creativist," which is sort of the fusion of being creative and being active. ESADE is all about innovation, about sort of breaking with the standard, finding new ways of doing business and giving a creative twist to business, but all of that also in an active way. So not just, let's say, talking about innovation and creativity, but actually being, an instigator of all that. So creativism would be, let's say, our MBA in one word. Also, do good, do better is something that is very important for ESADE. You'll see that in basically any brochure or website that you look for where ESADE is at. It refers to our candidates. They are doing a good job. Our students, even before they join us, and they will do undoubtedly a lot better when they leave ESADE. So that's one side of this sentence. But it also refers to ESADE, our social mission. We want to do good things for society to make the world a slightly better place, one step at a time. So this has been part of ESADE's philosophy and goes back all the way till the very beginning of the foundations of ESADE, about 60 years ago. So do good, do better is an important slogan for ESADE. So the ESADE MBA experience is, of course, a life-changing experience, and that's why I'm very happy that Laurie is here today with us, because who better to ask questions about the actual experience than the current students themselves. It is certainly an experience that will make a lifelong impact in your career and, of course, your personal experience as well. So where will you study? We are happy and proud to say that we are, of course, located in the beautiful city of Barcelona, to be precise, just outside of Barcelona in a suburb called Sant Cugat del Vallès, which is about 20-25 minutes from Barcelona. And many of you will undoubtedly know Barcelona about the many wonders of the city. It is associated as a holiday destination, if I may call it like that, but it is absolutely much more than just a holiday destination. It's a very vibrant hub for innovation. It is actually one of the industrial powerhouses of Spain as well. And it is also a very well-known center for conferences, with perhaps the biggest one, the Mobile World Congress, which takes place every year in February. And of course, you know, the city itself, the architecture, the food, the climate, it has in that sense many additional attractive offers to put the icing on the cake of your MBA experience. So ESADE is a school with a long-standing reputation in business education. We are one of the so-called Triple Crown business schools. There's not that many of them in the world. Triple Crown refers to the Association of MBAs, the EQUIS accreditation, and the AACSB, so sort of international quality hallmarks for business schools. And that is something that, in addition to rankings, can give you an insight on the general quality standards of a business school. If we look at how we try to teach and how is our culture and philosophy, we definitely talk a lot about a collaborative spirit. ESADE is definitely, I would say, about winning, but not winning at the cost or at the expense of others. So the whole philosophy of teamwork, collaboration, lots of group assignments, that is a key hallmark of our MBA. The hands-on experience, what matters for business matters for us. So it's not a sort of a theoretical journey that you go through. It is a very much a hands-on experience. Lots of links with the external business world, lots of practical exercises during the program. And I'm sure that in the Q&A we can dive a little bit deeper on those aspects. And then focused on you, in the sense that you are actually, as if it were, in the driver's seat of your MBA, because you can choose many different things. The length of the program, whether you do an internship, yes or no, whether you do an exchange program, yes or no. Obviously, you could craft the electives. You can decide what kind of hands-on experiences you would like to have. So in that sense, it is a very much a tailor-made MBA experience, which, if we look at the structure, would sort of translate itself more or less like this, where everybody starts at the same time at the end of the summer. And I'm sure many of you who are listening in now will have questions on, what is the contingency plan? What is ESADE planning to do to mitigate everything that is happening currently with the COVID-19 crisis? Obviously, this is ongoing. Currently, a lot of hard work is being done to get ourselves ready for a September intake, hopefully as planned, as starting as planned. But obviously, we are also dependent here on how things evolve in Spain. But let's be optimistic and let's assume that everything starts as planned. That would be at the end of the summer in September. And then, as you can see here, after several terms, term 1, term 2, and 3, you'll come to a very important decision point, track decision. In the case of our next intake, that would be, of course, May 2021. For Laurie and her fellow classmates, they are about to make the decision if they want to do 12, 15, or 18 months. So that is, I think, something quite unique, that when you start, you have 9 months time to decide how long you want your MBA to be. And obviously, the main differences between 12, 15, and 18 months would be that you can either do an internship, yes or no, an exchange program, or actually both of those activities, and then you would look at an 18-month program. So this is an important feature of the MBA focused on you, that the length is flexible. We are also very happy to be part of a very strong global network of exchange programs. As you can see here on the screen, we have lots of options basically spanning all continents. And for many of our students, having the opportunity to spend between 3 and 4 months on exchange in one of our partner MBA universities, partner MBA programs in top universities and business schools is a true, true added value. And you can see some names here on the screen. It's a long list, and many people are really looking forward to giving that extra international layer on top of the already very international MBA program. And for those who would stay in Barcelona, you would of course have the pleasure to meet incoming exchange students from those business schools. Very important as well is, again, coming back to the connections with companies, the option to do a global internship. I call it the global internship opportunity because a lot of those internships would take place outside of Spain. You can see here some logos from companies on the screen, obviously important sectors for MBAs, consulting, finance, but also what we call industry, which is basically anything else that's not consulting and finance. So obviously a wide sector. And especially, the technology-related companies are always heavily recruiting at ESADE. We discussed this briefly before. You can tailor your MBA experience with the length, but also with certain labs or so-called specializations. In the US, you might call it sort of a minor, sort of a certain focus within your MBA. You can see here innovation, entrepreneurship, and also marketing. Those would be areas for specialization within the more generalist MBA. And from a more careers service aspect, we have what we call the career acceleration programs. They are sort of programs to give yourself a better chance, more chances for success in several very competitive and highly regarded post-MBA recruitment fields. You can see here we have a career acceleration program in consulting, in investment and private banking, in technological disruption, and also in the future of healthcare. So to summarize what is a career acceleration program is think of it as going to the gym, but instead of working out on your physical body, you're working out on your abilities to land a job in one of those areas. And obviously they are important areas for any MBA program. I mentioned briefly before, do good, do better. Our vision, our aim to be a factor, an agent of positive change in society. So for that, we have lots of different real world challenges during your MBA. And you can see here mentioned the in-company project. That would be a project during your MBA where we can often, also bring in those values of social responsibility, and also challenge-based innovation with a Swiss-based research institute where you work together with engineers and ESADE students and also students from engineering from Barcelona, always working on programs with a social relevance. For example, how to realize solar panels for refugee camps or those kind of things. So it has a technical component, science, and it also has a business component. Very interesting projects involved there. The extended MBA program, you will learn a lot and maybe even more from everybody around you in the MBA than from the actual faculty. Of course, faculty is key for ESADE, don't get me wrong, but the people that you will be studying with will definitely be a crucial component and a very exciting way to bring your MBA to the next level. And that's therefore I'm delighted to have with us today Laurie, who is the president of the Mba Student Association, Mba as we call it. So we will definitely talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. We also have something that you can see here, global tracks, study tours, where we go to different parts of the world to bring our knowledge in touch with the reality. And also related to that is study tours. So some are more related from programs, some are more organized by students themselves with a similar objective of bringing the world to your classroom. This is a slide that I'm very happy to showcase with you here. To the far left, you have, of course, our guest from today, Laurie, and this is the whole Mba Student Association board. You can see it's a very, professionally set up organization with lots of different student clubs that you can see here at the bottom of the page. And to me, this is one of the most important aspects of ESADE, the actual energy, drive, and motivation that our current students are putting into the program to make the learning experience more intense, and also very importantly to bring yourself opportunities to get closer to certain areas of interest. For example, if you're interested in the sports business arena, joining a student club such as the Sports Business Club will give you lots of opportunities to have visibility with companies in the arena, learn more insights about it. So it's not only an interesting part of the MBA, I would say it's almost a vital part as well from a careers perspective. A couple of quick stats about what an average class of ESADE looks like. So we usually have between 180 and 190 students from roughly between 45 and 50 different nationalities each year, spanning the globe. And an interesting figure here that you see, 94% of our students are from what we call international. I would say 100% of our students are international, but 94% of our students are from outside of Spain. So that's what we mean here with international, coming from outside of Spain. But what I meant 100% of our students are international is that everybody comes with a very international outlook, multiple languages, international experience, etc. So truly global experience. You can also see that most of our students have, of course, work experience, as this is one of the admissions requirements. A minimum is needed of 2. Average is almost 6 years, and that of course also translates to an average age in sort of the late 20s. And then here a quick glance at the world map. You see that we also have a good spread of where students come from. Also, the diversity goes beyond geographical background and origins. We also have a lot of different people from different walks of life. You can see here a good amount of people from the economic management arenas, large amount of engineers or people with a more technical background, and then you see also a good spread of backgrounds from other areas, which again add to the overall diversity and learning experience. So with this rather quick overview of ESADE, sort of literally a bird's eye overview, that brings us to what I would call in Spanish el plato fuerte, the main dish of our event today. And that is, of course, to learn from Laurie. I will myself, of course, also be delighted to help with answering questions from an admissions perspective. I have been, as I mentioned, 15 years at ESADE, most of those years in admissions at different geographical zones. So in that sense, I have the pleasure to know quite a few people from ESADE. But this might be a good moment to start with a question for Laurie to perhaps explain a little bit more about yourself. I think it's interesting for our audience to know what you did prior to coming to ESADE, and you already mentioned you're from beautiful California, but just maybe a few little add-ons to so we know a little bit more about you, please.
Sure, absolutely. For me, I think, and it's an important thing about ESADE as well, is that I come from a very unique background for an MBA program, which I think I get a question when I speak to prospective students about that, is that something that's going to hinder me from getting in or from understanding classes or my classmates? And it really doesn't. For me, it's been a great asset. So my background is I actually studied environmental science in my undergrad with a minor in art. And then I went into wedding planning. So I'm from the wedding world. So I was a wedding planner and then moved into catering, where I did sales and then staff management. So definitely not your typical, I think I was one of those tiny percentages in there, background, but I really was ready to advance my career. And that's why I decided an MBA. And I really wanted to get that international experience, just as you said, which is why I chose ESADE, to get to know all those different classmates and everything. So my background is unusual, but I think it's really been an asset for me just because I've learned so much, and every single class is brand new, and all the classmates that I've got to meet and all their different backgrounds has been a really, really great experience. So any of you out there who are afraid that your background doesn't fit the typical background, that's honestly, it's not really what ESADE is looking for. They're looking for you as a person and what you're going to bring to this amazing school and amazing campus and also amazing student body. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, to add on to that from an admissions perspective, the strength of the ESADE MBA is precisely that diversity, and it goes way beyond, let's say, the sort of the classic diversity that one could imagine. I mean, we've had people from from the military, from NGOs, from if I just think back of my lengthy time in admissions, I remember having interviewed a priest who did the MBA. He had a very high Gmat actually as well, so that was definitely something. A priest. I've also interviewed somebody who was a battleship commander. So imagine how interesting group discussions can become when you have totally different viewpoints. And I get a lot of times the question, like, as you said, Laurie, people are sometimes a bit afraid, like, oh, my profile is a little different. I don't don't have the classic 4 or 5 years of banking or consulting experience. Will that sort of scare ESADE off in the application? The complete opposite. We like the more diversity we have, the better. Obviously, there is a relatively large amount of people with economics and finance background, but as we saw, also engineers are making up a large part, and then the rest. In total, about 40% of the remaining student population is very diverse, which is a key component of our MBA. And maybe related to that, Laurie, can we talk a little bit about the diversity as you are currently experiencing in your MBA? Maybe you can talk a little bit about your current study group. We do a lot of the group work in smaller groups, about 5 to 6 people, and there is usually a lot of diversity in those groups. So how does that work out in your case? Who are some of the people that you're working closely together with?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Jeroen explained, there are 3 terms in your first core year, and you change groups per term. So my first term, I had 1 group, and let's say I had a man from India, a guy from Ecuador, man from Turkey, and then a girl from South Korea, and a girl from Panama. So all of us, all different, obviously, nationalities, but then also in terms of our backgrounds, we had kind of a cultural attaché in there. One of us was in banking, one of us was in innovation. I was, of course, in catering, another in marketing. So just all those different backgrounds.
Yes.
It was very interesting. And then in turn 2, you switch teams. So I had another team where I had someone from Austria, someone from Peru, someone from Venezuela, so all over the world. And of course, all of those different perspectives just bring such an interesting and make it such a rich environment to learn, because you're all helping each other out based on what your experience is and what your expertise is. So if someone's not as strong in one area, someone else might be, and you really learn from your classmates. Just like Jeroen said, of course, teachers and classes are important, but the learning you get from your classmates is above and beyond anything I expected. And all that group work is amazing. And those groups are people I'm so close with. We talk on a daily basis, even now in quarantine, and we've learned so much from each other, and you grow so close. And then there's also people beyond in your class that you speak with. A lot of the first term is very heavy in finance, and for people who are not, technical in finance, it can be very, very difficult. But for those classmates that are, that collaborative spirit is not just a word that you're going to see here. You're going to see it written everywhere, but you're also going to use it in your day-to-day language. I speak about it every single day. And those classmates,
that was actually my next question.
Groups. Yeah, it's amazing. They hold tutorials. So you're going to learn so much from your classmates, and it's a really, really rich experience.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That was my next way. I wanted to ask is, in your experience, is collaboration sort of just a fancy slogan on a PowerPoint, or is it something that you really experience? So you've just taken the words away there already. Thank you very much. Yeah, good. In terms of the program length that we discussed briefly in the presentation, maybe you can share with the audience what your plans are in terms of your 12, 15, and 18 months, and if you have any sort of concrete steps already about the next coming months. Of course, this has all tremendously changed now. For that sense, Laurie and her classmates, I think they definitely deserve a prize for flexibility and adaptability as well, because nobody would have ever assumed that this would happen in their MBA. Actually, she is currently connecting from Mallorca. I'm here in Barcelona, and our host Mila is in Sofia in Bulgaria. So talking about globalization, this is another example. But yeah, coming back to the question about 12, 15, 18 months, if you can share some insights there from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the program is extremely flexible depending on what it is you want and what your goals are. And even as you're going throughout, as Jeroen said, you don't have to choose that track as soon as you get in. So me coming in personally, I knew I was going to do either 15 or 18. I didn't want to do the 12 months and do it quickly, although I do have plenty of classmates who did, and it's working out just fine for them. Of course, with this situation that we're all in right now, people's minds have changed and things have taken a different course. But I was on a call just before this one discussing what everyone's options are and what we're doing, because we have to choose our options within the next 2 weeks, I believe, is our deadline to choose if we want 12, 15,
exactly.
or 18.
May 2020 for you, obviously May 2021 for the next intake, but a good amount of time well into the MBA, which gives you, sort of times to shuffle your cards and see where you stand when you make that decision. And a lot of people change minds, because in admissions, a lot of people say, look, I'm planning to do the MBA in 12 months, but then when they actually join us, they say, well, wow, an internship would be really amazing experience, or going on exchange would be really nice. So you get that time to sort of make that decision, not at the beginning, and not when you apply. Yeah? When you apply, you don't even have to think about it. I mean, you just apply for the full-time MBA. And then when you begin, as we mentioned, 9 months, you have time to evaluate your options. Yes, very good. MBA Student Association, again, our warmest thanks for being here as the president of the MBA Student Association. You're very busy with everything that you do, and we appreciate you take some time out to share your thoughts and ideas with the audience today. Would you like to tell a bit more about the MBA Student Association, maybe some of the events that you particularly enjoyed, or some of the events that were most popular in general, so people know a bit more about student life and the Student Association?
Absolutely. So as we've said, I'm the president of the Student Association, and then there's 8 other members, and they're all vice presidents. So 3 of those represent our sections. We're split up into 3 sections as a cohort, and we take all of our classes together. And then we have a VP for communications, student and alumni, comms, events, and careers. So yeah, there they are all. That's my board. And in terms of diversity, you can see there's only 1 man and all ladies. We're pretty proud of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're also from all over.
I can safely say, absolutely, very proud of that.
But yeah, that's my board. I love them so much and work with them every day. But we, as the board, we oversee pretty much all student activities. So all those clubs listed below, we also oversee the clubs and make sure that they are running events. We help them out if they need any extra support. We connect them with the administration, as one of our main purposes is to be a link between the administration, management, and students. So when students have issues or questions or concerns, we bring them to management. When management wants to make sure their events are being broadcast or anything like that, we make sure to communicate it with the students. So we work as that bridge, and then we also just support any student initiatives that they want to push forward, and also these clubs with their events. And all the clubs themselves are student run. So you're welcome to join 3 business clubs as a student, and then within those clubs they have their own boards. So they each have presidents, they each have vice presidents, and they decide basically what they want to focus on, where they want their trek to be, what type of events they throw, and then we just support them in doing that. So there's always plenty of events happening every day, week by week, and it's always changing. So it's really cool that the students who take on this responsibility really take it seriously, because they want to make this experience, as enriching as they can for everyone. So even now, while we're all in quarantine, there's plenty of events happening. Obviously, they're virtual now, but everyone's still taking their job very seriously. There's a debate going on from the political club tonight. There's a LATAM club is holding another panel. I have a meeting right after this. So all those student events are still happening. So that collaborative spirit is still going strong.
Excellent, very good to hear. Yeah, and as I mentioned, the clubs are also a very good tool for getting yourself a little bit more visibility in terms of certain career sectors. I remember an example of some years ago of a Japanese gentleman who had a dream. He really wanted to work for Football Club Barcelona, which is of course quite a targeted dream. And we always advise people, good to have a good goal, but be flexible and also look at plan A, B, and C. But he went after his dream by obviously being very actively involved in the sports business club. In that function, he could get contacts through ESADE in Football Club Barcelona, who they invited on campus to talk about certain aspects of management at Football Club Barcelona. And one thing led to another, and he in the end was able to work for Football Club Barcelona with their whole Asia outreach, and how Barca can do branding in countries such as Japan. So the clubs are really a tool for giving yourself some visibility, and it's often a big difference if you call up somebody on an individual basis and, hey, would you like to have a cup of coffee with me? Maybe they, most likely if they're busy people, they may not react to that. But if you say, look, I'm the president of the sports business club, would you like to speak about your role at Football Club Barcelona at ESADE? Well, then you have a whole kind of different sort of entry point, and that's what we see how it leads to many interesting opportunities. Excellent. Can you share a bit more also, please, Laurie, about the sort of the more cultural festivities, having, of course, such a rich, diverse group of people from all over the world who, are very proud of the local traditions. I mean, we have, of course, things such as a Gastrofest or several cultural festivals that can be very colorful and lively. Would you like to share maybe one of those aspects with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Along with the events that Jeroen was just sharing with all the club events and networking stuff, your MBA is also to mix with all those students and their cultures, and also, to have some fun. We're here for that too.
Sure.
So Gastrofest for sure is going to be one of my best nights of the MBA. And what it is that all the different countries, everyone from each country gets together, and then they cook dishes from where they're from, and then we all have different tables set up throughout the night, and everyone just goes crazy in terms of you're eating ceviche from Peru, you're eating bulgogi from Korea, and you're just bouncing around, and everyone gets to really dressed up. There's music playing, we all do videos, people even do dances and all sorts of stuff. So it's for sure such a fun night to see everybody just exchanging their cultures and their experiences and their dress, and everyone gets really, really into it. So that for sure has been one of the greatest experiences. And then other events that we've had, Diwali is a really big one as well, which is a great Indian festival that we all took part of in November, I believe. And then we had the Lunar New Year as well, which was in January, where we all went to a great dinner with 12 plus courses, and we're all having fun. And again, just learning about each other's cultures and getting to take part in something that you might not otherwise have a chance to take part of, with someone who can really teach you the true meaning of it and the purpose behind it. And it's very integrative, and it really helps to understand who your classmates are and what makes them special and what makes their culture special, and really gives you that global perspective.
Fantastic, fantastic. Maybe a bit along those lines, a bit more of a general question. If I were to ask you, what is your favorite thing about ESADE? What would come up to mind?
I think for me, it's pretty easy. It's definitely my classmates and everyone I've met. I mean, besides just these beautiful 8 people that you're looking at, every single person just has such an interesting story to tell. And they're, like I said, they're so collaborative in the sense that they're willing to help, and just learning about where they're from and who they are, and just looking forward even more so to visiting these people years later in their own country. And that collaborative spirit, again, like I said, I had no business background whatsoever coming into this, and people were just at any turn willing to help and willing to, anytime I needed a pick me up or anything, they're still around. Like you said, I'm in Mallorca right now because I'm with one of my best friends from the program whose family has a house here. Otherwise, I'd be in my tiny apartment in Barcelona, which this is a much better experience. But you really build those contacts and those relationships that are going to be lifelong. And of course, I have loved all of the classes. Like I said, they've been for me just life-changing because they're so different, and I'm learning so much, and I've loved that aspect of it too. But when it comes to my favorite, I have to say my classmates for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm totally with you on the same page. Sometimes people they look almost a little bit puzzled when I explain that I've been 15 years at the same place. But then I said, look, 15 years at ESADE means that you get to meet thousands of fascinating people with unique backgrounds, with interesting stories to tell, and also, as you mentioned, with that collaborative spirit. It's really beautiful to see the initiatives that come out of the MBA. And as you said, you look forward to visiting those people at their homes, and the links remain, because I also see people who graduated 5-10 years ago from ESADE. And just to give you some ideas, at some of the class reunions, we had a class reunion last year. People 10 years out of the MBA, 10 years out, spread around the world. 70+% of the class flew back to Barcelona for that event. Of course, many now married with kids, so a lot of things have changed since they did the MBA, but it's really beautiful to see how those relationships prevail over time. And that's another thing I think is very important for our guests to take into consideration. And let me give an example about weddings here. Statistically, on this planet, there are more people that marry twice than do a full-time MBA twice. Yeah. So think very carefully about your MBA choice. I'm married. I hope that I will never get married again because I'm happily married. But I know very few people who've done 2 full-time MBAs. And I know quite a few people who got married once, twice, or even more. So of course, marriage is a huge step, but an MBA is something sort of, once in a lifetime. And the Alumni Association, I mean, you can't get divorced from your alumni network. I mean, you can be more or less active, but you are part of that network for the rest of your life. So I often see in admissions that people, are diving into details like I can do this elective or that elective. Of course, that is important information to look at. But my advice for people is do look a little bit more at the bigger picture. What kind of network would I like to be part of? What kind of people would I like to be able to call up 10 years from now if you have a business issue that you need some expert advice on? And therefore, my advice is always reach out to alumni, students of the different programs that you're looking at, because it is a big change. And on paper, a lot of MBA programs will look extremely similar. We talk about similar concepts, and fair enough. If you're a good MBA program, like ESADE, Triple Crown, there's lots of other good programs. Logically, that we have a lot of things in common. That's what makes us a good program. So therefore, it's not always easy to sort of find those differences. There was an initiative from one of our students. It was called "What is Invisible but Essential About ESADE," to sort of really get under the skin and try to find out what is really essential for ESADE. If I may bounce over to you again, Laurie, if we talk about invisible but essential, so things that you don't straight away see, but are really important for ESADE. What comes up to you? In a way, the uniqueness of ESADE. Of course, other schools may have similar concepts, but what makes ESADE that ESADE feeling?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and maybe this isn't completely invisible, but I think it becomes more apparent when you actually come to ESADE, is that because of the diversity of the student body, they also aren't focused on the typical sectors and churning out the same type of people that maybe some other programs might be. Like, the focus of ESADE is not just finance and consulting. We are very strong in finance and consulting, and I have plenty of friends who have great internships in that area, but they're also interested, or ESADE as a program is interested in so much more, like social impact. Again, the do good, do better is not just a slogan that you're going to see on the wall. Like, we use that in everyday conversation. So it's really important to ESADE as an institution, and then also to the student body, that they came to a program that's focusing on more than just a bottom line. They want to focus on doing some good with their minds and with their education and what they do moving forward. And sustainability is big, and innovation is big, and just seeing how they can change the business world for the better and change themselves and their employees, or any way, shape, or form. So I think that's a really important thing that maybe I read somewhere or something, but I didn't quite grasp how important it is to the fabric of what makes ESADE special, and what makes the student body important in terms of who you're letting in and admitting and stuff, because I think you take really special care with that in order to make sure that spirit is maintained.
Try to keep the standards high, indeed, in that sense. Yes. Maybe one final question on my end, and then I'd love to hear thoughts and ideas from our audience. And time flies when you're having fun. I see we're already a good number of minutes into the webinar, into the conversation. But a question we often get, Laurie, is can you please describe sort of a typical day at ESADE? What would that look like? Obviously, not a typical day with COVID-19, because that is not a typical day. We're optimistic that soon things should be little by little going back to normal. Yesterday, we heard relatively good news from the Spanish Prime Minister that hopefully in about 8 weeks, most of the things in Spain should be back open. So hopefully in summer, you're going to be back on campus. So let's say a typical day at ESADE, what would that look like?
Absolutely. It definitely it differs depending on the term and the day of the week and stuff, but your most typical, I like to give a typical week just because things do change.
Okay, better, yeah.
But we have basically 2 blocks of class each day. So beginning from 10 and then ending at 6. So you have your morning class, which is about 3.5 hours, a lunch break, and then an afternoon class for, again, about 3.5 hours. But you don't necessarily have 2 classes every day. So maybe on a Monday, you would have a morning and an afternoon class. And then on Tuesday, you'd have a morning class, and your afternoon would be open, which means you would be doing group work, or there would be club events or any sort of networking event. There's always something going on campus, or there's work to be done. So even when you do have that just group or just morning session, you're usually on campus till about 6 anyway. So your typical time on campus is from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then, of course, in the busy times and finals, it's 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Because we are in an MBA program. There is work to be
Luckily,
done.
Spain is a country where everything is open late, so you can
Yeah,
still grab a
that is
bite
true.
to eat when you leave campus late. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the 2 blocks of classes, and then always events happening. So whether, like I said, it's club events or career events, and then also that group work that's really important to, all the classes and everything. You definitely have group assignments that are always ongoing. So that's kind of your typical days, 10 to 6, depending on if you have classes or a free period, but that's kind of how it works throughout.
Yeah. Well, the events that you mentioned, interesting, because obviously ESADE as a business school, we do average more than 1,000 events per year across the world with all our international activities. And then the ESADE Alumni Association, which has approximately 70,000 people as part of the ESADE Alumni Association, of course, wider than just MBA. That is undergrad, MSc, PhD, etc. So then we would throw in at least another 1,100 events. So on average, there may be, on per year, more than 2,000 events that are organized by and for ESADE. So that's quite something. So that's also when you graduate, you have that ongoing interesting list of activities that you can form part of. For example, the 72 international alumni chapters that we have around the world. There is so much to talk about related to ESADE and the amazing people we have here, but let's see if we can make a quick shout out to Mila out in Sofia in Bulgaria. Do we have any questions perhaps from our audience that we can help?
Yes. Yes, we do we have quite a bit of questions. I'm going to start with them. And if we run out of time and some questions are left unanswered, I will make sure to give them to our panelists, and you will have your personalized answer in your email. So starting with the first one, I think you can both have a say on this. How are classes structured? Are you working on projects with companies from the start or on case studies?
Laurie, would you like to give that a shot?
Sure. So it does differ class by class, which if you're doing case studies or if you're doing more kind of theory or formal learning. But in the beginning, it's not necessarily working with projects, but we do have that later on in terms. Like in this term, we have more company-based projects, and then we do have a full 2-week program that'll be taking place in June, hopefully in person, but if not, online, where we actually do pair up with consultants and then with companies. So you're doing a consulting project specifically for one company, and that process is just getting started for us now. But in your typical classes, like your core classes that I've had this year, there are cases, but not every single class is a case. So again, depending on the class, you'll have either 1 case per week or 2, just depending on what you're doing. And then some is going to be theory, or some is going to be other readings and other examples that you're working through. So it varies based on the class. And then sometimes you're doing in class like experiential learning, where you're breaking up with your group, you're having a debate, or you're doing communication or things like that. So it varies based on the class. And then of course you're going to have finance and accounting, which are more theoretical, or strategy, where you have the mix of cases and theory, and then other practical courses.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving to the next question, which is more of an admissions ground. Do people who apply earlier have advantage or higher probability to get admitted?
Very good question. Thank you for that. My direct answer to that is no, because we have, throughout the year, we keep admitting people. Of course, if you wait till the very, very last moment, your chances are going to be reduced, because at admissions, we are in a way constructing pieces of the puzzle. It's like a puzzle. We create a class which we can compare to a puzzle, and the more we advance with a puzzle, the less likely there are, you only need certain pieces to make that puzzle complete. So that's why I don't recommend people to wait till the very end, because you'll just have the risk that there's no place left in the program. But our timeline is actually maybe somewhat different from what people are used in the United States, where people, usually typically apply, let's say, before January, February, latest maybe March. But a lot of European business schools, and obviously Asada as well, we run our application cycle actually right up till July even. So I wouldn't advise people to apply in July, but now in April, May, we are still in full swing. And maybe a follow-up question to that is there still, are there still options for scholarships? Yes, there are, because we do want to have, we have that sort of spread out right through the year in terms of admissions, as well as also scholarship budget allocated.
Thank you so much. The next question I would say is for Laurie, and it goes, was quitting your job to do a full-time MBA a tough decision?
A tough decision? Sorry.
A tough decision.
But well, for me personally, no. I was definitely ready to leave that job regardless of whether I was going to do an MBA or a different job. But for me, I knew that getting an MBA would help me get where I wanted to go. Even all of the jobs I was looking at that time were below what I felt I wanted. So I knew that getting an MBA would really give me the skills and the confidence and the competence to move up a level that I really needed. So for me, quitting my job was worth it because I knew that it would bring me to the next level in my career. And I think one of the most important things to remember is that, like, getting admitted to the MBA is not the final step. It's just a step in your journey. It's a stepping stone to what you're going to do next. And so for me, that was really important. And I knew that, number one, it was a once in a lifetime experience. As Jeroen said, I'm also married and hope it's only going to be my only marriage. And I mean, this is probably going to be also my only full-time MBA. So for me, the full experience was worth it. Even if it was, a little pause in my career, it was a step on the way to where I wanted to go. So for me, it wasn't a super tough decision, but I understand where it's coming from. But I knew it was the right thing to do, and it would lead me to where I wanted to go.
Thank you so much. Your next one goes to you. Does having another master's degree hinder my chances of being accepted into an MBA, or will it have a positive impact?
Oh, yeah, thanks for the question. No, having the more education, the better. When I said, few people do 2 full-time MBAs, that was just, statistically, there's not that many people that do a full-time MBA and then decide to do another full-time MBA. But one thing is an MBA, another thing is a master. So we do actually see a lot of people who come in with, let's say, a bachelor, a master, then look for an MBA, maybe continue with a PhD. So obviously in the whole, let's say, value chain of someone's career, there are many different educational opportunities. But to answer the question very precisely, it is always a plus. The more education, the better. The same thing goes for the more experience, the better. The more languages, the better. And obviously a master always gives you an additional viewpoint and additional new insights. So definitely highly encouraged to to not letting that deter you to look at business school.
Thank you. Next question is for Laurie. What was the main reason to choose ESADE?
Yeah, for me, I had actually visited ESADE years before I even applied in 2015. A friend of mine was attending, and I visited him in Barcelona, got to know the city, got to meet all of his classmates. I was really lucky. I got there on a day when he was going to a birthday party for one of his classmates, so they were all there. And I was just blown away by every single person I spoke to was from a different country, and they were so nice and so welcoming. They didn't know who I was, but they were willing to talk to me and willing to just have a great time. And the experience was so amazing. And then he has gone on to work at Adidas in Amsterdam. He and his wife live there now, and they've been there for about 4 years. So really just looking at the life path that he had, I was like, I want that. And I was like, well, why don't I do that? So when it actually came time for me to decide to do an MBA, I of course did my homework, and I looked at other schools as well. And I narrowed it down to a couple, but really for me, it was that ESADE culture that really drew me in. Of course, the rankings are great and the teachers are fantastic, but again, coming from that unusual background, I knew I didn't want the ultra competitive spirit going in with the students. I wanted a more collaborative spirit and kind of a more exciting international approach. So for me, that's what really made ESADE the right choice for me.
Thank you. Our next question is to Jeroen, and how is tuition built, and can it be paid in installments?
Sorry, the first part, how is tuition built? Sorry, I missed the first
Built,
part.
yes. How is tuition
Okay.
built, and can it be paid in installments?
Oh yes, yeah. So yeah, that's a good question, because we did touch upon, the flexible duration that actually doesn't have a price influence. So whether you stay longer or shorter, there's the same price for the same, same amount of credits that you take, because you just spread it out or you take it more condensedly. So the MBA, we're looking at 72,000 euros approximately, which is of course a very steep investment. Luckily, there are good scholarship options available. We also have good loan schemes that you can work together with ESADE to get access to loan options that perhaps in your home country would be different. And the second part of your question, can it be paid in places? Obviously, yes. It would be very difficult to pay that money straight up front. And also now, with all the current uncertainty, I can imagine that a lot of people say, look, with what's currently happening in the world, how can I commit to making these payments? So we also are very aware of that, and we're actually showcasing, I would say, a lot of flexibility in all of that. And if there are things that would impede that you would be physically in Spain when the start of the program, if you're still looking at 2020 intake, we have informed the people who are now in the admissions process that if they can't come to Spain due to, for example, visa reasons, that we would give them the reservation fee back. Yeah, so this is not an idea of sort of getting people in. I mean, this is a partnership that we have. We want people to be happy at ESADE. We want people to choose, if they choose ESADE, to want to choose them with the head and with the heart, because that's when the success comes in, and that's when you build a powerful alumni network that will be, faithful ambassadors for many decades to come. Yeah. So no, we are actually, as I mentioned, still in full swing for this year, and actually it is very, very busy. I mean, it's a lot busier than I had expected. I mean, I also am involved, I have to say, with Masters of Science recruitment. So for people that are slightly younger in the earlier stage of their career, but without a doubt, the last few 2 months have been the busiest months of the year.
Thank you. We're going to move to the next question then. And I think it's an admission one again. What range of Gmat score do you look into when you take applicants?
Okay, yeah, good question. Well, first of all, we have an average score of 650. But I like the fact that you ask about range, because an average is an average. I told you from the Netherlands, the average Dutchman is very tall. And if you would see me standing up, I'm certainly below average for a Dutchman. So obviously an average goes up and down. With that said, looking at the range, we're looking at ideally sort of as of 600 upwards, but we can lower the range a little bit. We have admitted people with GMATs in the high 500s as well, because it is always a holistic approach. It's we precisely because ESADE, we take admission so seriously. We will not just make a simple sum of, let's say, hey, GPA plus GMAT and then in or out. No, it is definitely more like, okay, this person has such and so GMAT score. Of course, the higher the better. But then we look at GPA. We look at what has this person done in his or her career. Has he or she helped others in the career? There's many sort of indicators that we have in admission. So if you have a GMAT score that is, let's say, 550 and upwards, I would never deter you from applying. I would always say give it a shot and see what happens. But realistically speaking, if we look at the bottom end of the range, there have been options with, let's say, the higher 500s as well. Yeah. On a side note, now that I am, there have been, of course, lots of difficulties with the GMAT centers being closed. I know now Gmat is offering GMAT tests online as an exceptional situation, demand exceptional measures, as we say. We are actually offering an alternative for people that are in the process and haven't done their GRE or GMAT yet. we can, under certain circumstances, give them an opportunity to do our own admissions test, which is normally only used for our executive education programs. But during a temporarily sort of state, we are offering that for our candidates who are looking at our MBA. What I don't know how long that will still be open, because obviously when Gmat tests are being taken more and more online, at some point we will wind that option down again. But this is something that we've offered to people that are currently looking at ESADE and have had issues with their Gmats due to the current situation. So reach out to us to see if that would be applicable for you still. We can certainly help you on a more individual basis there.
Great, thank you. Next question to Laurie is, how did you prepare for the admissions process? Any tips would be great.
Yeah, I actually, like Jeroen said, I was actually in that last admissions timeline, so I did it very towards the end. But I looked at all the questions that you have in your application, like the short answer questions and all of that. And I took a lot of time and care with those. So I asked even friends of mine to kind of help me, like some of the questions, ask about your personality or what you're going to bring to the class or things like that. So I got outside point of views, which was really helpful, because sometimes you view yourself only in one specific way, but other people see really special things about you that you don't see. So it's really nice to have those conversations and make sure you're pointing those out, and especially talking to colleagues too when it comes to pointing out your professional successes and accomplishments. A lot of times we like to be humble and things like that, but it really helps to get outside point of view. So that's a tip I would definitely give people. I also did plenty of research online to see if there was other examples and things like that, but at the same time realizing that what you're going to write and what makes you unique is going to be much more important than what you're going to find online. So definitely be sure to speak in your own voice, not to try to make it too overly formal. I mean, I'm sure Jeroen can speak to this, but I found in my experience in working with my admissions officer that they cared more about who I was than all the numbers. Again, with that student spirit and that class diversity, they really want to know what it is you as a person are going to bring to the class, which is more important than any score, because that's such an important part of what makes ESADE special is the culture. And so they want to know what you're bringing to the table in terms of that. So really honing in on those short answer questions and making sure you have really well-rounded answers that really represent who you are as a person, to make sure that you stand out in a special and unique way. And yeah, I'm trying to think if I did anything else, but I can't really remember.
Very good answer. Yeah, I totally echo that from admissions perspective. Be yourself. It is a process to get to know you, and you get to know us. And it is a fun process as well, because you learn a lot more about yourself. You learn a lot more about different schools when you apply to them. And it's definitely admissions. We are here to bring the good people in. We're not sort of the aggressive bouncers at the door trying to keep you out. No, we will do our best to try to get the good people in. And all of our colleagues are very approachable. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, we are organized by zones. So if you have any follow-up questions, it's always nice to just mention, hey, I'm based in such and such country, because that allows us much quicker to sort of put you in touch easily with the right person that can help you with any further questions you hopefully have, because if there are more questions, it means that there is more interest.
Thank you, guys. So we have time for one last question, and I think you can both attribute to it. And goes, is accommodation easy to obtain in Barcelona?
Do you want me to take it?
I've been living here for a long time, so maybe you want to start, Laurie. Yeah.
Yes, it is definitely a process, and some people did stumble a little bit with it, but to be everyone, it worked out for everybody. So what I would highly recommend, which of course depends on the current situation, but if you're not applying for this year and you're looking at next year, would be to come in August and to look at apartments in person, and to make sure you get give yourself, a month or at least a few weeks to really get settled, because it's a very fast moving process. So even for me, like looking at apartments in the beginning of July was kind of irrelevant, because they would just go. And I personally wanted to see an apartment in person before I chose. But saying that, I do have a bunch of classmates who did just do the whole process online, and they looked at apartments. They also, we as Mbasa, we connect you with your classmates. So if you do need to look for roommates, you can do that before you even come here, and you guys can connect on WhatsApp or Facebook or however you choose. Connect with your classmates if you need to find roommates, and then you guys can decide what part of the city you would like to live in, and what type of apartment you would like, and then go from there. There's plenty of resources online. That's how I did everything. You know, I looked online, found listings, and then when I was here in Barcelona, I looked at places, and we found a place within a week. So it worked out perfectly for us. So for some people, there is, you know, things that always cause a little stumble, but that's any market you're going to look at. But overall, it was not a difficult process, and not anything that caused a lot of headaches.
No. So just to add on to that, thank you, Laurie, for your answer. We have also several what we call online information sessions for candidates that have been admitted and are looking at sort of the practical steps of, hey, what's next? I'm going to decide. I have decided to join ESADE, and then, you know, you have your moving to Barcelona, your student visa, your housing, banking. So we have, of course, everybody has the same question year after year. So we have, in a way, bundled those questions, and our international student advisors team, they will do those sessions. And what Laurie mentioned is very important, that you're indeed going to be paired up with people who are already at the program. There's also such a thing as a Facebook group of admitted students who will all join ESADE, and there you already know a lot of interesting things. You share tips, and of people who, you know, have left ESADE, they will also advise incoming students about flats. So sometimes you have sort of ESADE flats that go from one generation of MBA students to the next. The fact that we are just outside of Barcelona, we do, you know, sometimes recommend people, if you live in Barcelona, which the vast majority does, try to sort of live strategically along, let's say, the subway line, the suburban subway line that takes you very rapidly to ESADE. But depending on where you live in the city, if you have to let's say, travel half an hour to get to that subway line, then maybe your final commute adds up a bit. So there are certain neighborhoods that already actually used to be the most popular neighborhoods for ESADE students, such as Gracia or Sarrià, that are actually also very well connected to the campus. But those would be definitely sort of insider tips that our collaborative spirit will gladly help you with.
Thank you so much. We are now wrapping up. Thank you, Laurie and Jeroen, for this informative presentation and for taking the time to answer the questions. Thank you for those who attended. And those whose questions were not answered, I will make sure to get them to Jeroen and Laurie, and they will answer them when they have the time to do that. Thank you so much. We wish you all luck on your academic journey. And thank you again, Laurie and Jeroen. That was a great webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mila. Thank you, Laurie. And thank you all for joining us. Best of luck with the next steps, and stay well and stay safe.
Thank you, everybody. Bye. Hope to see you at ESADE soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, on campus again. Yeah.
Thank you. Goodbye to everyone.